A Stone in My Hand, Chapter 2, ABDO. A rooster wakes me, or is it the voice of Muezzin calling from the mosque for morning prayer? They crow at the same time. They fight over who gets to wake the people. Today the rooster won, so I get up before Hen does. She gets up for morning prayer. When I climb to the roof to feed Abdo, I hear the Muezzin chanting. It is Friday, the day many men go to the mosque for a sermon and prayers. Allah Akbar, God is most great. La ilaha illa Allah, there is no God but God. Al-Salat Khair min al-Naum, prayer is better than sleep. I'm not so sure that prayer is better than sleep, but only Abdo hears this thought. As I stroke Abdo, I remember when I first saw him. It was the day after my father left. On the day that my father left, I went back up to the roof in the evening to watch him, for I had to be there to play the game. I don't remember falling asleep, only that the heavy gravel in my eyes kept closing them. When I woke up the next morning, I was in my room. I was furious. Who had moved me? I went back up to the roof to look for father. I waited, but he did not come. Hen kept calling me to come downstairs that day, but I ignored her. I could not leave the roof. I was waiting for father. He would be looking for my signal. The last rays of sunset were glinting off the antenna when I heard my mother's footsteps. Her eyes were red. She held her shaking hands in front of her as if she were beckoning me. Her hands were pale, except for the dark purple veins. Malak, I am so sorry. She stopped, drew in her long breath, and then blew it out through her lips. Malak, your father is missing. He should have been home by now. What? My father was missing? I thought of the man down the street. This man had left for work years before, when I was 5, and had never come home. People used to say, "Have hope," when they visited his wife. That was the first year. Then people did not speak when they came out of her house. The man had become nothing, not alive and not dead. Nothing. People didn't visit his wife anymore. What would that happen to my father, my mother? Only God knows where he is. No, my mind screamed. Missing men, fathers, brothers. Could they be dead? Like my uncle, he didn't come home from work in Jerusalem one day. And finally, a week later, my father's cousin called from Jerusalem to say that he thought he had seen my uncle on TV, on the news. They were covering a demonstration, and the cameras had zoomed in on the people in the back of the demonstration. A man ran across the street and put his hand on a car door. Then he dropped to the ground. The cousin thought that the man was my uncle. It was. He'd been shot. That was why he never came home. There was a movement behind my mother. It was a bird. Maybe he's in prison, my mother said. I've heard that the border police were pulling men in for questioning at the Israeli border yesterday. Maybe the police pulled him off the bus. They do not need to have a reason. Maybe. The bird sat on the corner of the roof, looking at me. I saw that my mother's mouth was still moving. I could see some words, maybe hurt, hospital, dead, God forbid, but I couldn't hear them. The last word I heard was prison. My mind had seized it, and it stayed. I was in a tight, dark place, and the air was being squeezed right out of me. I could not let my mind take in any other words. I forced my eyes open and saw the bird opening and closing his beak. He kept doing it. I knew the bird had a message for me. My mother's hands dropped and smoothed her rumpled skirt over and over. I opened my mouth, but my words were gone. Perhaps the bird knew where they were. I walked around my mother and stared at the bird. It stared back. My mother touched my shoulder, but I kept staring at the bird. My mother pressed my forearm with her hand, and then she turned and went downstairs. May you reach morning in goodness. That night I fell asleep on the roof. The bird was watching me. In the morning I was awake before anyone else. I went downstairs to get some seeds. I made a row of seeds by the corner of the roof to the corner where the bird was. When I finished, I heard Abdo in my mind. I looked up at the bird. It had said its name. That was the message, just for me. I waited up there all day. Before sunset, Abdo was a few seeds closer, but my father wasn't home. The moon came up, and I stared at it until I heard the thump-thump of my mother's footsteps. I pretended to be asleep. She covered me with a blanket and said, "Sleep, my child." She left me there. After she left, I sat up. Abdo pecked a few seeds closer. "Come, Abdo," I whispered in my mind. "I am patient. I have nothing to do but wait." ABDO flew into my hands, ruffling his white feathers and scratching around on my palm. It hurt, but I didn't mind. Together we watched for my father to come. I wondered if the bird would find my words, but if ABDO knew where they were, he didn't let on. We stared out at the houses and buildings that were so tight together you could hardly see between them. TV antenna crisscrossed electric wires. Trees are scattered between the old stone and concrete walls. For 2 weeks, I mostly stayed up on the roof with ABDO. I didn't have school. The Israeli civil administration had closed it. When my mother said I had to go down in the house with them, "We will wait together," she said in a low, sad voice. So now I go up to ABDO whenever I can.